Welcome to Water Your Soil. Before I get into this video, please like and subscribe. Actually, before the video even starts, when you come to this channel, make sure you like and subscribe. It's to help the channel out. If you like any of the videos, make sure you do that. But let's get into it. This video is about the 3 biggest credit card mistakes. Alright, the 3 biggest credit card mistakes. Now, when it comes to having a credit card, a lot of people just think it's all about, okay, I got some extra money. Number one, there's rules to credit. When I say number one, that's not listing off the 3, but there are rules to credit cards, okay? One of the main rules that I always tell people when it comes to these credit cards are credit limits is not your money. I'll repeat that. Your credit limit is not your money. So a lot of people have the misconception that their credit limit is their money. They be like, I may not have a lot of money in the bank, but I got credit cards. Yeah, you got credit cards, but that's not your money. Whoever the lender is and the credit card distributor is, that's whose money that is. That's who it belongs to. What you do is you basically borrow money from them on a monthly basis or however often you use your credit card. That's what you're doing. You're doing nothing but borrowing money. And see, you could get away with borrowing money without having to pay tax, quote unquote tax, I'll say, which is the interest. However, if you roll over balances, you will be paying interest on borrowing money. And in the credit card world, my opinion is there is no point whatsoever in borrowing money if you're going to pay interest on it. So number one thing that I have to say as far as the misconceptions of credit cards is, it's not your money. And that's one of the main things that people need to understand and know. And if you have watched any of the videos on this channel, Water Your Soil channel, you will understand why I say it's not your money. It's not your money. No matter what you try to do, credit cards, your credit limit is not your money. Okay, so let's get into it. The 3 biggest credit card mistakes. Number 1, you don't choose the right credit card. So one thing when helping out people with building up their credit and consulting them as far as choosing the right credit card, I asked them what kind of credit card do they want. A lot of people, they don't understand that question. There are different types of credit cards. There are rewards cards. There are credit cards for students. There are credit cards for building up your credit. And then there also are premium credit cards, like cards for traveling and cashback cards and cards where you actually gain points. There's cards for hotels, for airlines. There are different types of credit cards. So the first thing first is you have to know which type of credit card you're in the market for. You don't just go and get a credit card just because. You want to get the most out of whichever one you get. So whichever one you pick, you have to pick it for a specific reason that will help you get the most out of it. Some people, I remember back years ago when I was younger, and I really didn't know anything about credit. I just knew the basics, like, a credit score is important for things like getting a house or a car. But I didn't know anything as far as the concept of credit. But looking back on those years, one of the main things people used to tell me and others to do as far as credit cards is to go and get a store credit card. And, they say that so you can start building up your credit, but I always figured, and looking back on it in hindsight, getting a store credit card would have been a bad idea for me. I did go and get one. I had got a Best Buy credit card years ago, maybe like 14 years ago. So that turned out to be a good idea to do that, to get the Best Buy credit card. I didn't know how to use it. I just was like, yeah, I got to make sure that I'm not late on payments, but I didn't know how to use it. I had like a little $300 credit limit that they gave me. I guess it was like one of their starter credit cards that you could use to build up your credit, but they gave me that, and that was my main credit card, and that was my only credit card, and I didn't know what I was doing with it. I I had no clue what I was doing with it. And as a result of that, I ended up hurting myself down the line. But you know, store credit cards, I'm not really a fan of telling people to get those type of credit cards for their first card. I wouldn't refer it to people. There are literally hundreds of other cards they could try for their first card. As far as, you know, travel and things of that nature, those usually come in for people who do a lot of traveling. So when picking the right card for you, think about your lifestyle. What do you do often? Do you go out to eat often? Do you go grocery shopping often? Do you shop for clothes often? Do you travel often? You know, do you stay at hotels often? Do you like to spend money, you know, or are you on a fixed budget? You need to factor in these things, because if you don't, you may end up picking a credit card that you don't get the most out of. And these days, when it comes to credit card, the most important thing is to choose one that gets you the most advantage in terms of rewards, because just about all of them have some type of reward on them these days. If it's not cash back, it's a bonus. If it's not a bonus, it's for points. It's something. So choose one that fits your lifestyle the best. And when I say, you know, make sure you have the income, that leads to number two. The number two biggest credit card mistake is your income is questionable. And what I mean by your income is questionable, maybe you're on a budget, or you don't have enough as far as income in order to, you know, pay off your credit card bills every month. If your income is questionable and you do not have the income, do not look at credit cards as a rescue plan. This goes back to what I said at the beginning of the video. Credit cards, credit limits are not your money. So if you're struggling financially, you probably shouldn't have a credit card. And if you do, try to get something like a secure credit card, something with a small credit limit, or, you know, a small requirement for a deposit where you don't have to spend that much. Or you can just have a credit card, but you don't spend much on it, which you're not supposed to do anyways. Especially if your credit limit is around $1,000, you really shouldn't be spending more than $100 on it. Now, of course, some people will say, oh, 30%. I don't say 30%. If you want to get the most out of your credit score, keep it below 10% as far as your utilization is going. That's what I'm talking about right now. But the reason why I said your income is a big credit card mistake is because if your income is low, that forces a lot of people to start spending and using their credit cards. Oh, we didn't forget about you, social media stunners. I ain't forget about you. A lot of people, you know, take trips, go out to dinner, go to brunch, go shopping, all of these things on credit cards. And then they're not able to pay that credit card debt off. So they're living a lifestyle and choosing to live a lifestyle that they can't afford. As I always tell people, especially on this channel, in my book, in my class, if you cannot afford to pay off what you spend every month, do not spend it. Do not spend what you cannot afford to pay off every month. Because if you are spending what you can't afford to pay off every month, one thing that it is saying is that you don't have enough income. So make sure your income is together. That helps you avoid overspending. You don't want to end up in a lot of credit card debt. That's not going to help you out at all. Credit card debt is just an extra burden to your credit report, and it's going to hurt your score. You don't want to be carrying over credit card debt, and then eventually, you know, people usually get lackadaisical about paying it off, so it usually creeps onto their report as far as collection is concerned, and that creates a whole nother problem that you don't want. So make sure your income is correct. That's the number 2 biggest mistake that people make when it comes to credit cards. So now we're into number 3, which is the final mistake that I'm gonna list. I'm only listing 3. I could have probably listed more than this, but I'm listing the 3 biggest in my opinion. The number 3 is a very crucial mistake that people make, and that's you don't use the credit card correctly. So the credit card or cards that you have, you don't use them correctly. What do I mean by that? That means that you are either overusing the card or underusing the card. You know, some people get credit cards and they'll use them for a couple of months and then they forget about them. And if you're going to do that, eventually the credit card company, they're going to close down your card because they're going to figure you're not using it, so why should we let you keep this card? The key with credit cards is to always keep them active. Even if you have to go out and buy some items from the Dollar Tree that cost $1, or go out and get a tank of gas every month, fill up your gas tank, or go out and purchase a meal from a restaurant or something like that. And I'm not even talking about a restaurant where you actually dine in. I'm referring to a fast food restaurant. It could be something that costs $6 or something like that. You know, they may reduce your credit limit when they see you're not spending a lot, but they're not going to close out your account. They usually won't close out your account for that, long as you're keeping the card active, you know, because maybe they'll figure like, hey, maybe they, you know, got into a financial dilemma or something like that. But one of the mistakes that people make is they don't keep their cards active, and once these cards get closed out, they're usually closed out for good. I remember that I had this happen to me before. It was one of the dumbest things I did, but you don't want to do it. You don't want to go and let your card get closed out, because eventually it's gonna hurt your score, and it probably, once they close it, immediately will hurt your score. So you don't want to do that. Also, you don't want to overspend, as I talked about with mistake number 2. You know, overspending leads to debt, credit card debt. That's something you don't want on your credit report. You don't want credit card balances being heavy and high and you can't pay them off, and then eventually they lead to collections. You don't want to keep digging a hole, and then you're going to be getting ate up by interest. So with these credit cards, you want to be smart with them. You want to manage them correctly. You want to make sure your utilization is correct. I always tell people, keep your utilization under 10%. If you don't know what utilization is, I have videos on this channel, Water Your Soil. On my channel, just go to the videos tab and search through. You will see all the videos, utilization and everything else, how to use a credit card correctly. I have those videos on my page, just search through them. But you need to keep your utilization correctly. You need to use the card often. And when I say often, I'm referring to at least once a month or every month. And you also need to pay off your credit card on time. And that's very important. So, you know, not overspending, that goes into play when it comes to utilization, and not underspending, or, you know, letting the card die and close down. That goes into, you know, keeping the card active and actually using it every month. But I would think everyone would know they're supposed to pay on time. That's one of the main things that everyone usually knows when it comes to credit cards, is that you're supposed to pay on time. And if you didn't or don't know that, you probably shouldn't have a credit card. So just to recap on them, number 1, you don't choose the right card. Make sure you choose the right credit card. That's important. Number 2, make sure your income can actually afford a credit card. You have to be able to afford to have a credit card, because as I stated, you have to be able to pay it off every month. That's important. You don't want to get into credit card debt. That's a headache. And number 3, make sure you use the credit card correctly. Those things are important. If you have any other questions about any credit or anything, check out the videos that I have on my page. Also, be sure to check out my book. It's called Strategies to Master Credit. Is available on all online bookstores. That's Amazon, Barnes and Noble, just about all online bookstores. It's called Strategies to Master Credit. I even have a website, mastercreditbook.com. I like thank you all for subscribing. I like thank you all for watching. Please like. Thank you.